Hello, and welcome to Soft Human Voice. This is a podcast dedicated to helping you remember your source divine connection. You are not alone. You are loved. You are wise. You're intuitive, and you have way more co-creative power than you think. And so we want to remember this together. And today we're going to be remembering other things like our nighttime dreams with our special guest, Bonnie Buckner. And I'm really excited to get to talk with her today. First of all, I am Jessica Shepard. I am an astrologer, intuitive guide, author of 5 books, including a Love Alchemist notebook, Magical Secrets for Drawing Your True Love into Your Life. And I host this podcast as well as writing for the companion Substack newsletter, which is Soft Human Words. And I also teach Qigong on Substack at Soft Human Movement. So you can read more about my writing, listen to this podcast, sign up for the newsletter over at jessicashepard.substack.com. So I'd like to introduce Bonnie today. I'm going to read her bio before we do a personal connection and introduction here. So Bonnie Buckner, PhD, is the founder and CEO of the International Institute for Dreaming and Imagery and the author of The Secret Mind, Unlock the Power of Dreams to Transform Your Life. And she's also the program lead for George Washington University's One Humanity Leadership Coaching Certification Program, where she uses dreaming and imagery to develop coaches. Her blog, The Secret Mind, can be found on Psychology Today. For further information, you can go to www.bonniebuckner.com. That's BUCKNER.com. And we'll also have these linked in the show description so that you can easily find it. So welcome, Bonnie. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for agreeing to join us today. I'm in Hawaii and Bonnie is in France. So there's a little bit of a time difference. We're at opposite poles right now, but we managed to hook up in a way that's working for both of us, that's hopefully not impinging too much on your dream time, Bonnie.
Yes. I'll be headed there next.
That's right. Yeah, that's important to you. So I just wanted to take a brief moment to share a few insights that I've already garnered from your book. As I mentioned to you, Bonnie, in our kind of pre-interview call, my clients have always been curious about dreaming. This is a question I've had over the years. And it's also kind of part of the ancient traditions of all cultures, as you talk about in your book, including astrology, which used to have, the astrologer was a physician and also would invite people to spend time in dreaming temples. So dreaming as a holistic practice has intrigued my clients, my listeners for a long time, and myself. So when I got your book, your lovely book, and I'm going to show it to everybody just so you have a sense of this book. It's already, for me, been quite used because I was really intrigued. I found myself just getting really drawn into the process and your approach. And one of the things for me, and I was just talking about my husband, I have kind of a dream practice of recalling my dreams as we sit on the front lanai and we feed the parrots and we drink our coffee. And that kind of relaxed state is really fertile ground, I find, for just like, I'll be recalling a dream and then I'll remember an aspect of the dream. So I have a number of nightmare dreams, and they're related to early trauma. And so there'll be themes, and it's just for years. And I was just telling my husband, a few months ago, I wonder if there's ever going to be a way to resolve this, because in my waking life, I have. But in my dreaming life, I'm still caught up in something clearly. And then I read in the beginning, and you just had a brief sentence that is one of your motivations for doing this work was that as a child, you experienced nightmares. Is that correct?
I did.
So I thought that would be a good place to kind of begin, because I've already, as I'm about to say, I already got some traction on working with my dreams through your book. And I'd love for you to just, talk about why you do the work you do and how you stepped into it.
Yeah. So nightmares are a great place to start because almost everybody has ever had a nightmare.
Yeah.
It's a kind of dream that shakes us physically, emotionally. And because it's so dramatic, we remember it. Because all of us dream every night. The question is just whether we remember what we're dreaming or not. And because nightmares are so dramatic and they're usually fear-based or anger-based, and those acute emotions wake us up literally to remember those dreams.
Yeah.
So I got into dreaming. When I was a child, I had many, many nightmares. And one day I was sitting on our front steps, not a lanai, but front steps in Texas. And I was thinking about, I don't want to sleep. I don't want to go back to sleep. I don't want to have nightmares. And I kind of went through in my mind thinking about what is a dream and these kinds of different questions. And it just kind of hit me, I actually have to figure out how to deal with my nightmares, how to master my nightmares. And then that's what I'm here to do. I'm going to teach other people to do the same. And, it was a very young understanding as a child. And it kind of stayed in the back of my head as I went through life and followed different passions, including understanding dreams, until I found my dream teacher, Dr. Catherine Shainberg, and this ancient lineage that I learned and teach, which dates back to the 13th century and was the most modern teacher of it was Colette Albuquerque Muscat. And, Catherine was a direct student of her.
Mm-hmm. And Catherine was your teacher?
Yeah, I studied with Catherine for a little over 10 years. And,
how do we were talking that? I'm just curious. Like, was it a kind of mentor-teacher relationship? Was there an actual dream school?
Catherine has a school, the School of Images in New York, and she would teach workshops. She would do one-on-one work, teach online classes, and I learned in that way.
Cool.
Yeah, and go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, we were talking earlier about listening to the birds outside your window, and it's morning where you are, so they're all very active. And the thing about this lineage of dreaming is it's very ancient, and it comes from a time when we were very embodied, where we were much more closely aligned with nature and much more in nature. We have houses and cars and little boxes that separate us from nature these days. And at that time, we were so much more in tune with natural rhythms, our own rhythms. And dreaming comes from our bodies, not our heads. Mm-hmm. And so the more embodied we get, and what they understood about embodiment is so deep. And it's really about coming into our own body and listening to the messages of our own body and dialoguing with the messages of our own bodies. Mm-hmm. Which means that if there's a nightmare and I'm having this kind of acute emotion, I can indeed return to my body, return to those images and shift them.
Mm-hmm. And that is absolutely what I discovered by using one of your techniques, where you re-enter the dream. And it's funny because I have done energy work that feels very similar to this process to me, because it's like I dialoguing with an image within your body. Once you start to shift the image or you bring in new components, you begin to shift the energy and it changes everything. And so that is what I found so interesting about your process. Before we dive into like the technique of it though, many people only know dream work from, what we have in the US, and you grew up here. So the Barnes and Noble bookshelf, the dream shelf, right? Where you get some kind of encyclopedia of dreams. And then there's something like, if you dream of your teeth falling out, it means you're going to lose money or something like that, and this is kind of like the popular culture version of dream work. So when you talk about embodiment and connection to nature and seasons and kind of dialoguing with the body, do any of those symbols ever come up in terms of interpretation? And how do we learn to interpret our images? So
I never use the word interpret.
Okay.
Because interpret is fixed. Like once you've interpreted, it's like you've stamped it, it's done, it's over. And also, if someone is saying something about a dream, then as an interpreter, it becomes that person's point of view. But images are something to unfold. And they continue to sort of unroll like a scroll and move within us and resonate within us in different ways at different times. And so, I don't look at images as symbols either, because in the same way, symbols are fixed. It's a one size fits all. Mm-hmm. And that's not what the language of our body is. Our body is intensely subjective. We have a very specific set of experiences that make us who we are. And so a tree to you is going to be different than a tree to me. And also different trees show up at different times and mean different things in different contexts within the dream. So images are really alive, and it's truly a dialogue with the body, pulling from things that we know and things that we've experienced and things that we understand, and playing with all of those images to help us see things in new ways, to see things that we're not seeing for ourselves when we're awake, and then offering different ways for us to see things.
And so what you're describing is like more of a full-bodied re-entering into the dream. It's not a flat, linear, cognitive, like look up symbols in a book or ask the analyst to tell you what something means. You're actually in a kind of living relationship with the dream, right? When you kind of go back into
because dreams are that. I mean, think about a nightmare. You wake up, you're sweating, your heart's beating fast. There's nothing cognitive and dry about dreaming at all.
Yeah.
So to kind of treat it that way and treat it at arm's distance, it removes us from the reality of that is all playing out right now in our physical bodies. You know, people say to me sometimes, I had this nightmare, but it doesn't matter. But they're still thinking about it. So it does matter. It's still resonating in there somehow and creating some kind of inner static, let's call it. Yeah. So it's about tuning into that and then going back in and cleaning it up.
Is there ever any kind of, do you interpret every dream? Can you interpret every dream? Or not?
I mean, I don't interpret.
I'm sorry. Does every dream have a message? Let me reframe that.
Dreams have messages for us. They're telling us about our present tense. So the images of dreams are our body's way of putting our energy into some kind of form so we can understand it. You know, very abstract things like you hear people say sometimes, I don't know if you hear this, but I when I'm working one-on-one with people, I have people who say things to me like, I'm upset. And it's this kind of abstract thing and it's nebulous. And as soon as we have an image of it, you know, I feel like I'm trapped in a cave and I can't get out at my job. Now we can work on it because it's become clear. Like doing my hands, we can really wrap our hands around it. That's what dreaming is. We have these things like I'm upset or I feel good, but what specifically? It's an energy in us, and the images are giving form to it so we can really understand it and then work with it.
So you would say, yes, every dream has a message per se. Like
it's telling me, it's looking in the mirror.
Yeah.
You know, when I look in the mirror, is it a message? Like it can be, you know. Yeah. I looked in the mirror a couple of days ago and I look more tired than normal. So that was a message for me. I cleared a few things off my calendar so I could kind of get quiet and take care of my body. So dreams are a mirror of where we are in our present tense, which means, by the way, we drag our past into our present tense all the time. If I haven't let go of something or transformed something is a better way to put it, then, and I'm thinking about it, then that's in my present tense. Even though it happened, 20 years ago, it's right now. If I'm worried about something that's in the future, the worry is right now. The future is fantasy, but the worry is right now. So that's my present tense, even though I'm projecting my thoughts in one or two different directions.
Yeah. It strikes me that, that we can use, it's like one of those tools, dream work, for getting insight into how to work with our everyday life, what we're bringing in, what we don't recognize. I mean, in my case, like the conscious versus the subconscious feels very like, whoa, there's some kind of dissonance there, and just use this information from dreams to help us get further down the road in letting go of blocks or transforming, whatever it is we're looking to release and move into. You have several different types of dreams. I want to mention that I think too, we're going to talk about developing a practice of remembering dreams, but maybe we can talk about the different types of dreams first.
Yeah, so there's 7 different kinds of dreams. And this is, something that Catherine used to sort of distinguish between dream experiences, because a nightmare is not the same as something that we would call a great dream. And that corresponds to waking time. There are moments that if there's a conflict or I get an unexpected email or a tax bill, that's a little nightmare moment. But if I go outside and I take a minute and I hear the birds singing, I feel the sun on my face, that's a very different kind of moment. So all throughout our waking time, we have very different kinds of experiences. Those correspond to different kinds of dreams, because whatever we're dreaming when we're asleep, we're living when we're awake. And what we're living when we're awake, we're dreaming at night. We're not... You said earlier that your conscious and subconscious feel so dissonant. It's more that we're so busy when we're awake and we're focused on doing. Our eyes are looking out, we're standing up, we move forward, and we don't take a lot of time to reflect. But it's not that part of ourself is so far away. It's just that we're doing so much that it's waiting for us to actually be quiet and go to sleep before we can pay attention to it. That makes,
I mean, we are trained to look outside of ourselves and to the external world. I mean, there's a lot going on. We need to survive. We're
go to the grocery store.
Yeah, we need to figure things out. So there's the daytime consciousness that doesn't typically in modern life allow for reflection, right? And then so we have this kind of fertile space between waking up and entering into the day when these images pop up. And that's kind of the time, the transition time where we can honor that reflection space for what it is, to show us more about, the images, that what they want to teach us.
Yeah. And all through the night. I mean, we're dreaming throughout the night. Yeah. And so anytime we might have a dream that we want to remember, I mean, we can become quite adept at being lucid or paying attention to our dreams, and can wake ourselves up to write something down. I have a lot of students who come to me and the dream includes, I needed to remember to tell Bonnie this part of the dream. So I woke myself up and I wrote it down and I went back to sleep.
It's amazing how we don't often realize that just the power of intention or just deciding to do something. But before we spoke the first time, I had decided that I was going to have a dream and it was going to be a clear dream. And it was. And right. And that actually falls into one of your dreaming categories. But I'm like, I often do that when I'm receiving images. I do another practice of interpreting images, but I'll say, make it clear. Don't just give it to me, but make it clear. And I asked for a dream related to a health issue that I'm working on. And I got the dream, but it wasn't as clear as I wanted it to be. And I was like, oh, I should have asked for the clear, but it was definitely actionable. So just to affirm that, asking for the dream, setting the intention for the dream, and like you said, waking up in the middle of the night, just so you can record that dream.
Yeah, or whenever you wake up with it, because for some people, it's as they naturally wake up in the morning. A note on the clarity. Mm-hmm. We do let our linear mind trick us often. We want something to be 2 + 2 = 4, because that's how we're used to thinking. But often dreams are incredibly clear. The message is incredibly clear, but is coming to us in terms of images and not telling us as a directive, not like a billboard, but as a sense. Or you talk about using intuition in your practice. For me, intuition and dreaming is the same thing. Intuition is something I call dreaming in the daytime, getting these messages in the daytime. Dreaming is when I'm sleeping. I don't know how you work with intuition, but intuition for me is a still, quiet voice. It's very ephemeral, and it might be an image, it might be a sense, it might be an inner knowing. It's never that billboard of 2 + 2, and yet we know it and we get it, we can understand it. So we sometimes can trick ourselves into thinking the dream hasn't given me something clear. And that can be because maybe we're wanting that 2 + 2, or it could also be, I just had an expectation or an assumption, and the dream is actually telling me something unexpected. And I need to sit with that for a moment and see what that different thing is that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, I think the message is always there. It's always up to, our perception, right? And how we're seeing it. And I definitely got the message, but it was a surprise to me, exactly that, what I was being told, what I was telling myself. Yeah. It's another aspect of dreaming. And I'd heard this before. People say this, but every aspect of the dream is an aspect of the dreamer. You said this in your book, and it's kind of a great way also to approach your life. As you said, the difference between waking and dreaming isn't that far apart. We're living it, and so when we're working out, conflict or shadow parts or whatever's going on in our life. I mean, I have worked with my intuition that way in asking what is happening in my solar world, my everyday external reality, to tell me its message, right? So every aspect of the dream is an aspect of the dreamer. I'd love for you to just elaborate on how you use that.
Yeah, I mean, that was sort of initiated by the Gestalt school and Pearls. And how I think about it is that all of these are different. All the images and all of this are different depictions of the different energies that are in me. Mm-hmm. So, a landscape, it could be a dry and rocky landscape. It could be a lush and verdant landscape. It's my landscape. It's telling me about my inner body, inner self. And then things happen in that landscape. And when I talk about how to then use that in waking time, so all of us contain inner contradictions. You know, we may say at the same time, I really want a promotion, but I don't want to have that responsibility. And both are true. Mm-hmm. And we have to hold these contradictions in the same hand because we are just so naturally, we have multifacets to ourselves. And so the dreaming is showing us all these different facets to the self. And when we can start to kind of look at them and explore them, it helps us to reintegrate ourselves because we're very often separating from the self. Mm-hmm. You know, think about the little kid who you've just watched this child take the crayon away from their brother. And you're like, did you just take that crayon from your brother? And the kid's like, no. And they're holding the crayon. But they do this in order to, you know, be a good person and to be a good person in front of the parent. And so we do the same thing. We say one thing maybe to a boss, or we say one thing to a partner. And it's kind of true. Maybe we didn't intend it, or we feel that in the moment, but we also feel other different things. Mm-hmm. And so all of these different things are being shown to us in our dreaming through these different images. So if you think about that, and then you look outward, because we draw into our lives people and situations based on our energy. And so one really beautiful way to resolve conflict in our life is to just think, okay, well, that's an aspect of me because we're two sides of one coin. We're involved in this kind of situation together. So what is it saying about me, and how can I shift and transform that in me, which will then shift that situation?
Yeah, it's awesome when you I don't know, take responsibility for all of it. And I don't, you know, say that with you know, by saying, oh, you created this person mistreating you, or, you know, but it is a part of shadow work to say, oh, if that person is doing this to me, what aspect of me would like to be that person, for instance, or could validate that perspective that person is holding. So these situations that create conflict for us are these opportunities to kind of bring together these opposing forces inside. And I've seen that already in the just the little bit of dream work I've done with your book, how one self part is holding this perspective, another self part is holding this perspective, another self part is holding this perspective. But in the end, when I worked with, I was like, oh, well, we can all get along, because I found validating each perspective was really useful. Yeah, it was quite interesting for me. So let's go into more like resolving the conflicts in dreams, a little bit more deeply into that, what we look for, what we might train ourselves to start to notice, where we could enter and start to change the story, find the key, as you say, and kind of begin to resolve these things.
Yeah. Well, so of those kinds of dreams that you asked about earlier, they fall into two categories, and one is unresolved and one is resolved. And we know inside of ourselves both. So we know if we're out of balance in some way. So we can say it. We may not be able to identify why, but we can say, I don't really feel right today. I don't feel aligned. I don't feel like myself. And then on the other hand, we know when we feel very balanced, very aligned, very grounded. So our body is calibrated for balance or homeostasis. It's like if you're hot, you sweat. It's the same thing emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. We're constantly trying to resolve and return to balance. And so if there's a dream, nightmares again are really great for understanding this because they tend to be kind of simple without a whole lot of length and detail and storyline and things like this. So, for example, in the book, I talk about a person in a car that is driving too fast and it's super dark. There's not enough light to see the road. And there's all these people crammed in the car and the music's turned up way too loud. They're too loud. And then all of a sudden the person realizes there's a gaping hole and the car's about to go off in it. That's a nightmare. And it's a pretty simple nightmare. The colors are dark and it's pretty clear that you don't want to go into the hole. Mm-hmm. So you talked about this waking dream exercise, which is really just closing your eyes and breathing out and returning to the dream to do what is needed. And so in this example, it's to do what's needed to not go into the hole. That person goes back into the dream and just presses on the brake. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, the whole entire scene changes because that's how our spontaneous imagination works. And so suddenly it's sunny outside, there's no music, it's quiet, nobody else is in the car. Now, that particular person was on a very long, launching a product, a very long work trip, and there was too much of everything. Too much flying around, staying in hotels, being in different places, too many meetings, too much eating, not at the right times, rhythms. It was exactly the situation of the car. Mm-hmm. But we ask ourselves, we get into these moments, why don't we stop? Mm-hmm. We wait until there's a nightmare. Mm-hmm. And so having had the experience of stopping by working with the dream and feeling that experience and what a shift and how quickly that shift was and how that felt physically in the body gave that person the understanding of I am going to literally fall in a hole if I don't stop. Mm. And so they called into the office and said, I gotta come off the road and regroup.
And I remember a similar story you told in your book where the message was kind of just as dire. I think it was about somebody's health, and they didn't pay attention to the recurring nightmare, and then the health event happened. So it's interesting. Like this can be. Am I recounting this correctly?
I think it's the intuition story of the latter that you're thinking about.
Okay, but it was just like. The message was like, listen. Oh, you didn't listen. And then this happened. And it was kind of like in a hindsight thing. And I thought, wow, that dream messenger was really knocking at the door. And so what you're describing here is, to me, like the difference between listening, taking your own, and when you're caught up in your life, and thinking that you have to do these things to survive or whatever the programming is around that, and you can't find that brake pedal, going back into the body, just as you're describing, having that imagery to work with, it just sounds so empowering and positive. Yeah,
it is, because the brake pedal is actually really easy to find, but we get caught up in other things. And so by working with it in a dream, again, dreams are incredibly physical. And having the sensation of being able to stop and feeling in the physical body what stopping feels like is what gives the motivation and the courage to do it in waking time, even if it means calling the boss and saying, I can't take this on.
So you're saying the positive sensations of experiencing the pumping of the brake in the physical
There's
body,
no pumping,
or
just stop.
stopping the brake, the flat brake, that you can actually, as you're going back into the dream, the dreamer is able to experience that relief, experience that stopping, and that in turn influences the waking life and kind of the courage or the positive. Really, like oftentimes we just need that positive anchor inside of ourselves to know that stepping outside of our comfort zone is going to create change.
Yeah, because we've already experienced what the change is going to be. And so, if you think about it, you can't unring the bell. If I have felt relief from something, and there's a tremendous amount of cognition that happens through dreaming. Dreaming utilizes the default network of neurological processing. It is a form of cognition. And so stopping, putting my foot on the brake and stopping the car is cognition. I'm thinking, I'm experiencing thinking, and I understand, which means I need to do that. Here's an easy way to think about it. I don't know if it's ever happened to you that you've been in a certain period of life, finally took a vacation and thought, oh my gosh, I should have done this like so long ago. It's that feeling now so that you do it now, not overwaiting until it's sheer exhaustion.
Right. Beautiful. Beautiful. I love that. So what we're looking for in a dream that has, in this case, some charge is some kind of imbalance that shows up. You point out in your book an imbalance. You're looking for what would help fix that imbalance or the necessity, right?
Yeah. So I'm headed out of control towards a hole. I don't want to be in the hole. So what is the thing that can fix it? Stop. We tend to complicate things, but when you look at dreams as something playful and just enter into a dialogue with the images, it's usually pretty clear the moment where energy starts to like get cramped or blocked or stopped altogether. And we want to keep it flowing because we're always moving and flowing. So it's about feeling that in the dream. And another way to think about it is if you're listening to music and all of a sudden you hear this like out of key note. It's a whole long symphony, but this one out of key note signals, okay, there's something wrong there. So we can even just kind of listen to ourselves read a dream out loud at the end of the day. Go back and read it to yourself out loud and just listen for where's that little like, that little part that just stops you. And you're like, wait a minute, everything was right. And then right there, nothing's right.
So does every dream give us a key that way?
Well, the unresolved dreams will.
The unresolved ones. So what about the resolved ones? Those sound really great. They sound like the kind of dreams that are really a pleasure to experience and may expand our perspective and show us new possibilities.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
A great dream, a dream of light or a dream of union, and bigger than everyday colors, bigger than everyday experiences, like super expansive. Maybe there's a message. We do have those in waking time too. We have a moment where we're like, oh, and we see a friend we haven't seen in so long, or we fall in love, or we hold a baby. Today I pet a baby pony on the nose and just the fuzziness in that little moment of just saying hello to this little creature. That's a great dream.
Yeah, that is a great dream. Yeah, I don't know. As sometimes I feel that as life goes on, everything, of course, is a dream. And I just mentioned to you before we jumped on to record that Hawaii's been experiencing some major flooding. And talk about dream imagery. I mean, who hasn't had what I'm seeing on social media and the news resembles, dreams I've had of flooding that I've interpreted or gotten messages from. Excuse me. I don't know. That's going to be a hard habit to break, the interpretation.
It is, because it's been so used. But yes. You know what happens, Jessica, when you start to break that habit? It brings in way more fluidity into everything.
Yeah.
Where things just aren't like a one thing, but it can breathe and it can move. And, a dream that we have this morning, tomorrow, maybe looking back, oh, wait, there's this additional thing that's resonating out of that I understand now. It just kind of brings some space to things.
I can see that, because interpretation is such, again, that logical, linear, rational mind language. And just opening it up to something more fluid sounds really nice. And then speaking to that kind of, you talk about this in the beginning of your book, actually, about how dreaming helps us connect to our innate creativity. And I was thinking about this in relation to just what I mentioned, how as life goes on and just the times that we're in, more and more I feel like the things that happen in the world are like, wow, could we have even dreamt this up? They're so incredible. The flooding, the natural environmental things that are occurring, and then the people relationships. So it struck me that using the waking dream exercise, using dream for messages, not interpretation, could also help us in our everyday waking life with finding creative solutions to what can seem like a nightmare, honestly, in the world, right? And so I just wondered if you speak to that a little bit, that creativity connection and how that can help us open up.
Yeah, so I could speak about this for hours because it's super important. Dreaming and creativity use the same default network. And there's one of the things, this whole discussion that we've been having about the word interpretation, one of the ways that you can measure creativity, there's different ways to measure creativity, and it's a multi-component thing. It's not just like one sort of thing that leads to creativity. But one of the things that is talked about is loose associations and resistance to premature closure. So, meaning that I don't stop at the first obvious thing. So if I take my drinking glass and I say, what can you use this for? And you say a drinking glass, then it's done. We don't have any further conversation. But if I move myself beyond that first sort of literal, the habitual, familiar thing, then suddenly it becomes playful. And it's like, oh, I can use it to make cookie dough, faces, or, oh, I can put it against a wall and I can hear what's on the other side, or I can grow an avocado in it. And we start to get playful, and suddenly it opens out this whole array of things that are possible. So the tendency, particularly when there are frightening things happening in the world, the tendency is to come back to the most familiar thing, to not stretch out to those loose associations and to not play in the mystery, which would be resisting premature closure. It's like batten down the hatches. I don't want to think about things. I just want to get through it. And that's exactly the wrong thing to do, because the way to get out of it, the way to transform and move to a new place much more quickly is to do exactly that, to stretch out, to get playful with things, and to see, like, what are all the other possibilities that might be present that I'm not seeing? Now, if we do that by ourselves, that's great. But I will tell you, after 20-something years of having dream groups, there's something really big that starts to happen when you're working with people in a group, because whatever I say is going to make you think of something, and then you're going to say something, and it's going to make me think of something, and then amplify that by like 10 different people who are all in that space of being open to ideas, and many different things can emerge in that space.
Wow. So you lead dream groups in which people, they bring their dreams, and they are, and you will kind of co-message.
Well, we work with the dream. So we use a very specific set of steps, and we use an intuition exercise to determine which dream we work with that session. And each of us take on the dream as a secondary dreamer. Wow.
That sounds fascinating. So just to underscore what you're saying, you know, this creating space, getting out of the idea that a glass is simply just something to drink water out of. What other possibilities actually exist for this glass? This is what dreaming helps us with, to kind of expand and play with our creativity. And it helps us solve problems. It helps us find possibilities where we might have been flattening that before. And it just seems like this is what our world needs right now, honestly. You know?
Indeed. I hope so much that people return to their dreaming, because even if you don't, go through making a super conscious effort to like work with your dreams and all that, just being aware of dreams, remembering dreams, opens us out even more. Because if you think about it, I live my day. It's the day that I know, the life that I know. And then I go to sleep and I'm in a completely different world. And if I wake up and remember that, then already I'm sort of opening the window to a whole different thing. So now I'm living that very familiar day, having just experienced this very new thing. And it's a subtle shift. And if you do that night after night after night, it creates sort of a new muscle for being able to be like, I don't know, peek around the corner, because the mystery is interesting and we might find something else there. And it's not a scary thing, but a fun thing to do.
Absolutely. And so the waking dream exercise, are you going to walk us through that a little bit? Or do you have some kind of practice that we can start with?
Yeah, I mean, before even the waking dream exercise, the practice that I would give to all of your listeners is exactly that: to get a notebook, a dream journal that you really love, and begin to write down your dreams and do it nightly. And just notice in yourself if there's a tendency to edit, to criticize. Oh my gosh, that was a weird dream. Or, oh, I can't believe that I had this dream about, something sexual. Or I can't believe I had this dream where I was so angry. Like, just let the dream be what the dream is, and stop the self from trying to diminish or push away, and just see what can arise and what can I learn about myself from that.
So just kind of record it like a reporter without a narrative. Right? Just like the facts, ma'am. Just the facts.
Yeah. Just write it down without making a story about it.
Yeah. And then what do we do?
So, I mean, that right there is a major developmental leap. I
Okay.
have so many people who come to me and they have a dream, and I start to work with the dream, and I'm like, but so what about this? And I ask a clarification question about a detail, and they say, oh, well, yeah, so there was this whole other part of the dream, but I didn't want to include it. Why? I didn't think it was important. I didn't think it was, a part of the rest of the dream. I didn't think, or I thought you would think I was weird, or like so many things that we say that curtail a natural movement or curtail us even listening to something. What if you are so prone and quick to say, I didn't think that was important? Well, what about when good ideas start coming up in the daytime? That same voice is going to push those out of the way. So it's about learning to allow the inner self to put some ideas in front of us. And it's a practice to do that. That little inner critic can be quite loud sometimes.
We self-censor so much, and I think we're taught that. And so just allowing the dream to exist as it is, like allowing a child to just have a tantrum or or do what it does, show us, say a dirty word. Well, that has to happen. So like that, just that permission, that allowing is, you're saying, a first step, and a very important one for opening up to
see it. I mean, I'll miss a great idea if I'm quick to push away anything that's not already familiar. And also, if there's something I want to transform in myself, I can't transform it if I'm not willing to see it.
Yeah. So we write down the dream, and then should we, if we feel we've done that enough time, can we start looking for the imbalance or
Absolutely. So, one way that is helpful to start to do that is to write it in the morning and then go and live your life, do your day, and then come back at the end of the day and read it out loud. There's some distance there. And by reading it out loud, we can hear things that we don't necessarily hear when we're in it. And so listen for that. Listen for, is there that moment where it's like, oh, that's kind of a weird thing there. Like the energy stopped. It's not fluid.
Good. And then if you feel like, John said that he thinks that I have, my husband, John, that I have some, because of who I am, it was, easy for me to work with my dreams. I don't know about that. Maybe you have your own thoughts about that. But I find that, so once I identify that, that imbalance or that conflict or these different self parts, I kind of just, I did a little, as you mentioned in your book, you kind of sit with your feet on the ground or lotus position, you count backwards, 3, 2, 1, you re-enter into the dream. And for me, I just kind of showed up at each piece and kind of just felt with my whole body what was really going on there. And then I was instantly able to recognize the need just by doing that with each figure and treating each aspect of the dream as an aspect of myself too, of course. I did at one point say, okay, this seems so different from me, but this is an aspect of me. And I'm like, oh, I get it. And so going into that dream from this kind of really maybe more neutral space, right? This neutral and just open, curious place. I didn't feel like I was, putting my impressions on it. I was allowing it to come to me. And at the end, like you mentioned in your book about this practice, you feel different. like I noticed that there was a deeper level of presence. There was a lift for me the dream didn't have the charge that I went into it with. So just taking you through my process to just share how that has already given me, your book has already given me a way to work with my dreams. It was just so fantastic. So I want to say thank you for sharing this with me.
That's great. And I'm glad that has opened some things up for you. Really, that's wonderful. A little tip for your listeners. I don't explore dreams when I do a waking dream exercise. I explore the dream before doing that. The waking dream exercise is a very pointed, specific, I'm going in to do one thing and then I'm coming back out, like going into the car, stepping on the brake. The reason being, particularly like if it's a nightmare, like the car example I'm giving, I don't really want to be the different people in the car. I know what I need to do, which is stop the car. I don't need to explore it. I just need to do something very quickly before I go into that hole. So in dreams, I don't know that I would want to explore certain aspects of those dreams. I just, before doing the exercise, I just let that inform me of where there's a block so that I can decide what I want to go in and do. Then I do the exercise and I go in and I just do that. And it's really fast. They're usually like 30 seconds.
So I took a more exploratory approach. I went off the page, which I often do. And it worked for me. And so, but that is a really good tip because I can see how going back into something is not necessarily always going to be the most helpful approach. Sometimes it helps to go in with a plan and have a
Yeah, we can get lost in that kind of story as well.
Yeah. Perfect. So is there anything else you would like us to know before we wind up our discussion today? Any more tips or feel free to let us know about your work and how to get in touch.
Yeah. So really, I just really encourage people to start writing down your dreams and to get a notebook you really love, because it goes back to what we were saying earlier about intention. If I really love the notebook and I'm kind of excited about it, I'm excited to put my dreams in it, I'm going to start remembering my dreams. And just pay attention. I mean, we're quite intuitive, and very frequently people will tell me, I didn't even need to work on this dream with anybody. Like, I woke up and I understood what the dream was telling me. So feel yourself. And, that's always a great guide to just feel like, how do I feel about this dream? So there's that. And then, if you'd want to take that further, as you mentioned at the beginning of the show, you can find me at bonniebuckner.com, or you can go to the Institute for Dreaming and Imagery.com. We have classes year round, and come join us, do some dreaming.
Beautiful. And so just a quick question too, with how you work with people. Do you work with people one-on-one, or is it primarily in a group setting?
Both. I do both.
Cool.
One-on-one and group.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Bonnie, for, again, agreeing to be on this podcast. I think that it'll, even if it just sparks a handful of people to start recording their dreams, that creates a ripple effect. And, I think we need that. I think we need that creativity. We need that openness and that curiosity right now more than ever. So thank you for bringing your work to the world. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me here with all of your listeners. Thanks.
You're welcome.